Hello, good evening or good morning, everyone here on the last event for our Ars Electronica 2021 Garden Newcastle, broadcasting live from our beautiful city of Newcastle in the wonderful Hunter region. Firstly, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we live, learn and work. We pay our respects to the Awabakal and Warramai elders from which I'm presenting today. My name's Ruli Zakaria. I'm the co-founder and creative director of Art Thinking Australia. Welcome to our first ever Art Thinking Saloon. We're very excited to be co-hosting this with the CEO and co-founder of Art Thinking, Dr. Christopher Minsky, who's had a very few busy days immersed in some of the Ars Electronica events, as well as producing and hosting the garden here with our team. How's that been for you, Chris?
Well, thanks for asking, Ruli. It's been a little bit chaotic, like I was at the festival in person. Normally I have been at the festival in Ars Electronica. In fact, before last year, I hadn't missed an Ars Electronica festival in almost 10 years. So yeah, it's of course a shame not to be there, but because of this wonderful garden format that exists, it creates these kind of new possibilities. But you know, of course, instead of real life activities, I've been just jumping in and out of all kinds of panels and discussions and networking events. I've been doing some workshops. So you know, overall, I'm just completely filled with new inspiration and you know, excitement and new ideas, which is what Ars Electronica is all about. So that's still there. But you know, it's so nice to be here as our final session to focus on what's most important, and that is actually the artists that we're going to be working with for our main garden feature that will be coming to Newcastle. At the moment, December is the date we're looking at because of the COVID disruption. If need be, we will have to push that back by a little bit further, but importantly, it will go on at some point. And it's just a great opportunity tonight to meet some of the artists that are involved. And I'm super thrilled just to be here and hang out with all you guys, my new and old friends, and just to be able to celebrate the end of the festival with you.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It's actually great to be part of the Ars Electronica event. It's been so exciting to get so immersed into it. But tonight we're going to have a bit more of a relaxed conversation with our 8 artists. So we've got quite a few artists here on our panel to find out a little bit more about their work. So I'm just going to go around the saloon for just a really quick hello, so you can put a face to the name. Good evening. Let's see who we got here. Good evening, Theresa Schubert from Berlin, I believe. Good evening to the Beehive Collective. Where are you at?
Oh, hello. Can people hear me?
Hello, hello.
Hello.
And beaming in from Sydney. Hello, hello. Beaming in from Sydney and Melbourne, we've got the Cuddle Coin Collective.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello, hello, and g'day to Caddie Brain from the NT, otherwise known as the Northern Territory.
Hello, lovely to be here with you all.
And finally, a big hello to Andrew Styan, who's just down the road in lovely Redhead. How is the water in Redhead, Andrew?
A bit cool, apparently.
Hello, hello. So, yes. Here, I think we might still be waiting for some more artists coming in. We're not sure if they can make it through, but otherwise, welcome everyone here currently in our panel. But before we sort of talk any further with the artists, I'm going to pass it back to you, Christopher. You're going to give us an overview of the Ars Electronica 2021 theme, the new digital deal, and also talk about our approach to space for action. Over to you, Chris.
Thank you, Ruli. Yes, so just to give a little bit of context, and I'm sure we have also some audience members that are joining us from the Ars Electronica Festival who are already quite familiar with what the topic and the theme is about. But this year, the theme topic is the digital deal. And I love this topic. I love this theme this year. I mean, I always enjoy every year's theme, but this one in particular, I think in terms of the time we are currently sitting in with what's happening with COVID and the situations that we've been faced with as well with our own garden, you know, when we kicked this off, when the opportunity arose again to be involved, we weren't really struggling with the same kind of COVID parameters that have been happening in other countries around. That has changed. We immediately got a lot of support from our partners, from the city, from the university, from the Clyde Street precinct, to really put together something very special. But then Delta's come along and that's changed everything. So we've had to mix it up, we've had to pivot. And as a result, we're now in the kind of hybrid portion of what is going to be a blended experience and event here for the Garden Newcastle between real and online events as well. So I think just the catchphrase for the digital deal, this idea that was promoted very heavily, that digitization is not necessarily changing the world, but it is drastically changing us. It's changing the society and how we're dealing with the world and how we're dealing with the future. And so I think the first sort of framing is to just lay that one down in terms of the festival program. And then for our local program, we were very interested to connect with artists from our network and our community. We didn't have a big time frame, so we started off quite small. The luxury we have because of the COVID disruption is actually we have more time, and now we've got more artists coming in and it's expanding. So number one is this idea of the digital deal, and there's lots of information up on the Ars Electronica website and all of the amazing program that's happening now, which is all about art and science and technology and society coming together and addressing this theme. So this is like the bigger theme above that. The other thing that we were interested in doing, and I think that just talks a little bit about what's the garden program. So we are one of almost 100 gardens around the world that are participating in this really interesting hybrid experiment of the Ars Electronica. So it was really important for us that we could bring a local perspective. So we are the Newcastle Garden. So what we were looking for and what we were interested in was to reach out and connect also with artists that are in some way connected to Newcastle as a place, as a destination. That includes some of the artists that are here tonight that are actually based and living here as part of their practice, but it also includes some of the guests that are joining that no longer live in Newcastle, but they have had some kind of connection and some sort of resonance with the place. So that's an important other aspect. And then the third one, which actually just was a bit of a more recent light bulb moment, was reminding me of an interesting conversation that I had with the Ars Electronica Future Lab director and somewhat of a mentor to our art thinking company, Horst Hortner. When we had a conversation, he introduced me to this very interesting word, the Handlungsraum, which at least for Theresa, and if there are any of our other artists that speak German, would probably know. This is a really great example of one of these German terms. It's a compound term, and it carries a number of meanings. So this terminology came about when I was trying through my PhD research to really understand what is this transdisciplinary culture and mindset that exists in a place like the Future Lab. And this is one of the things that popped out of that. And I found an interview from the first ever trip that Horst Hortner made to Australia. He's made a few trips since then because we've done projects here. And I saw this interview where it was Ross Harley, who was, I think even now or formerly the Dean of Art and Design at UNSW, an interview he did with Horst for Real Time magazine, when he was asking him specifically about transdisciplinarity and how he would describe this. And I saw this space for action. So I pulled Horst up on that and I said, what were you saying there? It didn't really completely make sense to me. But then he told me about this German word, the Handlungsraum. And the Handlungsraum is, on the one hand, a space for action, but it's important to understand that it's not just a physical space, it's also a mental space. And he was trying to describe how, you have to open up your mind enough to let the other discipline come in. So here he was very much talking to this idea of art science collaboration. So I want to bring that in there also as a theme. Even some of the new artists that have joined the program, I haven't even communicated that yet, but this is another meta theme that we want to address. So it is about really high level art and science collaboration, or in some cases, we have some on our panel tonight who are both highly trained artists and scientists coming together. But the other thing that I really liked about this term, and this is where it got really interesting, was Horst explained to me there's this way to use the term, which is something like a threshold. A threshold when you're in a really difficult situation and you need to get out of it. It's the threshold between how difficult that situation is and how quickly you need to learn something to break out of it. And I was just fully inspired by this way of thinking. And then the other, I guess, just more sort of basic grounded level is this idea of, a space for action, real action, where we want to, take this into the real world when the time allows for that to happen, whether that's in December or if we have to push back a little bit further. But that's exactly what we want to focus on. And it's a space for action where we can provide that kind of environment and experience for the local audience and potentially some local audience if we do have hybrid activities then as well. So that's the general theme and framing. I think maybe just to kick off on that one, Ruli, if you wouldn't mind, I could just introduce probably one of the first artists, which is the local artist, Andrew Styan. Andrew, I met several years ago, actually, at Ars Electronica when you were visiting there. And I think you definitely instilled this idea of someone who has also been highly trained, also in science and technology fields, but then you've also, applied this in deeply qualified artistic practice, including the fact that you have received many accolades, including an honorary mention in the ST+Arts, the big European Science Technology Arts Prize. So I'd love to just throw over to you, Andrew, so we can hear a little bit about your background and then the project that you're working on and thinking of bringing into this program.
Yeah, sure. And I have a couple of slides on that at the moment. I'll just show those in a second. But I particularly like this idea of the deal, the New Deal, because it plays exactly into what my research is about. A deal implies some negotiations, some participants, and as citizens, we have to be part of that negotiation. So how do we frame our mind? How do we get ourselves part of those conversations? And that's essentially what my research is about. But first I'll talk a bit about, I'll share the screen, just a sec. So here's a bit of a slideshow on me. So like I've lived in Newcastle for 50 or 60 years, 50 years. I've been making art for less than 10. Worked at the steel industry in Newcastle for more than 30 years as a technologist, as a metallurgist, if you know what that is. Mostly in quality assurance and roles like that. But I've always been interested in science and nature and photography and technology and that sort of stuff. But about 10 years ago, I got the chance to leave work and do something different. And I wanted to do something around climate change. I wanted to explore photography. But this big question was always that Newcastle's the largest coal port in the world. We contribute about 1% of the world's fossil fuel emissions from the coal we export. And at some point that has to end. But our leaders don't plan for the future necessarily. They think of the next election cycle. So at some point, the people who live in the Hunter Valley in Newcastle have to be part of that deal that involves moving forward. And a couple of years into my leaving work, the art side and this interest in climate change converged. I became what I call a climate change artist, I guess. But for the first few years, those artworks were more about protest art, I guess you'd call it. So it's all about coal and climate change. And if only people were aware of the problems, we could deal with it. But I think I realised fairly early on that art, because we're the ones who are actually responsible, that sort of art is just about making us feel guilty. And that doesn't make us move forward. There's too many psychological barriers to prevent us taking action, and we're the ones that are actually causing the problems. So I started to take a different tack, and I started to think more recently about systems thinking. And when you start to look at climate science, you realise the climate scientists are thinking over here around the Earth and all these sort of systems and processes that happen on the Earth side and the physical side, but they're starting to expand their thinking across to the human side, the social side. And of course, cultural theorists and practitioners and artists and so on have always worked in this space. So there's this crossover now between these two spheres of research, the science crossing over into human spheres, looking at how those things interact. And we need to start thinking about this way as well. And of course, all the issues that we face, social crises, inequalities, racial injustice, all those things happen in this space, but they're starting to cross over into this climate space and earth space as well. So to me, the big challenge is, how do we get people, not necessarily experts in all these things, but starting to appreciate that these things exist and there's systems and they're all connected. And connectedness is a big word that likes to get thrown around at the moment. To me, that's simply an expression of systems thinking. And I like to call my framework, my work about that. There's a book, The New Dark Age, James Bridle. He talks about systemic literacy, which is how we start to appreciate the systems thinking about the planet and how it works. So a few years ago, when I started to think about these things, I came up with an artwork. Here's this phrase. Oliver Ellison recently said this: science is disembodied. We can't necessarily connect with it. It's knowledge that doesn't have a physical sort of storage. There's no memory of it in our bodies. So art has a role to embody knowledge. We all know that, I think, as artists. So about 4 years ago, I came up with this artwork, which is called Catch Your Breath. So people blow a bubble in an aquarium, which is caught by high-speed flash photography and digitized, appears on a screen, goes onto a website, people can share it on social media. And these are the sort of beautiful, unique images that get caught. And it's all about connecting with something we take for granted, but also connecting with a bigger process and other people. And even though breaths are unique, they're all very similar in terms of different people that blew them. So in the course of about 4 years, this toured about 8 different galleries. We caught about 16,000 breaths. And I was thinking towards the end of it, what do I do with this? How does this connect us with planetary processes? And the thing that I came up with was the starting point of the You Are Here project. About the same time my father passed away and the ideas of last breath arose, and my grandson was born 12 months later, the idea of the first breath, what does that mean? And I started to connect these with the way climate scientists think about the planet. And so the project that I came up with is called You Are Here, which uses scientific modelling to track the passage of breath around the planet. But then it also connects it with other planetary systems and social systems in the long term. That's the chart of the project. So I'm going to attempt something here. So this project is at it's desktop running at the moment. It's intended to be a large-scale, immersive, interactive platform where people go into a dark space and interact with a large projection. It's being written in Unity, and I'm going to attempt to run Unity so we can demonstrate what the project actually does. So I'll start it up. So it's a fairly simple interaction to work. There it is, right. It's a fairly simple gestural interface. People move cursor around and the planet moves. We can rotate it. We can zoom in and out. Turn it back around, and as we zoom in, various markers appear, and this is one way of navigating content. Various markers appear, and here is the marker for Caboolture in Queensland, where my father passed away. So this, if I activate it, shows the path of my father's last breath around the planet, and it's driven by software developed by NOAA in the USA for climate modelling, for forecasting weather and climate predictions. And the same underlying formulas are used by climate scientists around the world to predict climate systems behaviour. So that's the course of about 3 months. He spends most of his time around Antarctica, his last breath. Travels back, cross over England later on, which is where he was born, so there's a nice connection. My grandson's first breath, actually, they meet each other somewhere over here, about 3 months before my grandson was born. There's this lovely poetic connection between those two. But the other interactions that lead to that, so where are all the breaths from the Catch Your Breath work? So the Catch Your Breath work had one occurrence in Melbourne. So here's the location of 8,000 breaths from that project. And you can see they're dispersed around the planet. And you can also see that they follow the patterns of weather, obviously. If you've been to any of the websites that show wind patterns, that's the sort of patterns they form. These are all cyclones and anticyclones and lows and highs and all that sort of thing. But it can also connect with the same modelling data that's used to create this is also used to create other models. So here is the pattern of moisture in the atmosphere. This is water in the air that could form rain. And we can see they follow the same patterns. They relate to the movement of air in the atmosphere. And that same model predicts rainfall. So these are rainfall patterns we see on our daily news broadcast each night. This is where they predict rain's going to be from that pattern. The weather radar. Somewhere in here is the weather radar. So this will be live data when the platform's running. So there's rainfall over Melbourne, go figure. And so on. And then from there you can connect to, I have an expression of Australia's river systems, for example, mapped onto that. So from that connection of the motion of the breath in the atmosphere, we can connect to planetary processes of weather and rain and so on. And rain connects to river systems, which connects to agriculture. In Australia, the Murray-Darling Basin is a political issue as well. So you can raise, what sort of data visualizations might relate to political issues around the Murray-Darling Basin, for example. So clearly this is, my research is around the development of a platform, right? And so far I've got a small amount of content that relates to the things that I'm sensitive to. The platform is intended to be some sort of transdisciplinary collaborative platform where any cultural practitioner or artistic practitioner or scientific practitioner can present content of some curated form that presents a narrative that connects us using the experiential context, like the breath, to broader, more informative content around the planetary processes and systems we all connect to. So wow, that's the project in a nutshell.
Wow, it's a very beautiful and it's a complex aesthetic visual that you've got there, and it's quite I mean, art for me has always been an aesthetic thing. So it's it just captures colors and lines so beautifully. And I love the idea, Andrew, that you really sort of jumped into the art world only 10 years ago. So I mean,
yes.
that is a sort of a bold career move is a beautiful thing as well.
It was never going to be a career move. I think I knew early on there's no money in art.
Hey Andrew, it's really beautiful work. I'm very excited to I look very much forward to actually seeing the work hopefully in December. And it's great that you're only up the road in lovely Redhead. So yeah, thank you.
I'm looking forward to showing it. It hasn't been shown yet. It's almost at the stage of public presentation.
Yes, great. Thanks, Andrew. So I might move it on here to the next artist. So our next guest is Theresa Schubert. She's into exploring unconventional visions of technology and self. So her work relates to humans and the environment and beyond that, the evolution of matter and meaning. So you can check out more details at theresaschubert.com. Welcome, Theresa. I believe your most recent exhibition, Sound of Fungi, is at this year's ST+Arts in Linz, Austria. I know I have my fungi, my pasta, and occasionally get into a fungi soup, but what does fungi or mushrooms actually sound like?
Hi, and thank you, first of all. There is a very important detail wrong in the title. It's actually not sound of fungi, it's sound for fungi.
Oh, my bad, my mistake. Sorry about that, Theresa.
And that's a conceptually totally different approach, because I'm not trying to sonify how fungi might sound like, but it was based on an experiment, on a laboratory experiment where I played different sinus frequencies to fungi, to mushroom mycelia, and was looking how they would react in terms of morphology, or metabolism. So would they grow a more denser structure faster or slower, or would they change the pigmentation through different metabolites or enzymes that would be produced based on a sound influence? And the laboratory experiment had two parts. So I had like a zero reference experiment where they were growing in silence, and one where they were exposed to different sinus frequencies. And then I used these results as a basis for this interactive generative installation that is now on view at the Ars Electronica and the ST+Arts. And that was just up until very recently in Newcastle as part of the experimental lifeform exhibition. So it's still touring Australia. I don't actually know what the next stop is, but it's still going on for the next 1.5 years. And that's the main idea of the work. Well, then the work actually has a longer title. The full title is Sound for Fungi, Homage to Indeterminacy, which is a reference to John Cage. So it's kind of also referencing on the idea of uncertainty and randomness from nature, and how this can be incorporated as a structure, as a basis for artworks. And the general conceptual idea that sees indeterminacy as an improvisation technique, and improvisation is something that I see as a very important element in nature also, that during evolution actually all things had to kind of improvise to or all living beings had to improvise to stay alive.
Yeah, it sounds like a very and sorry about the title. I'll have to go back to my producers and double check on that one. But
yeah.
it sounds like well, congratulations for starters for being one of the winners of the Prix Ars Electronica. Well done on that one, and also very much looking forward to seeing some more of your work. And for the audience out there, definitely go check out theresaschubert.com as an excellent artist who, in terms of being involved in Newcastle, did you spend some your alumni from here?
Sorry, what was the question?
Oh, so did you study here in Newcastle?
Yeah, well, I did exchange semester in Newcastle a very long time ago. And I lived there for nearly 2 years. Yeah, that's about more than 10 years ago. So yeah.
Okay,
I have a relation to Newcastle.
Yes, it's a beautiful city. Okay, thanks for that, Theresa. I'm going to move on to our next guest. Thank you, who shares a space in the Art Thinking studio. So Caddie Brain is a community technologist and journalist who spent the last decade working with Indigenous groups in the Northern Territory. She's just completed her master's in applied cybernetics at ANU. You can find out more on her on caddiebrain.com. There's so much to talk about here, and I've got to mention, Caddie, you're also the executive officer for Wikimedia Australia. So you're currently in NT at the moment. What have you been recently working on?
Thanks, Ruli. Yes, I'm on unceded Aranda country this evening from Mbantua, Alice Springs, where it has been an absolutely gorgeous few weeks. I've been here for the last few months, and my practice is actually split between Newcastle, where I've been living this year, after about 10 years in between Mbantua and Larrakia country in Darwin. My background is in journalism, so I'm interested, I suppose, in, rather than maybe a transdisciplinary practice, sometimes I think of it more as an anti-disciplinary practice, kind of breaking down all those structures as opposed to bringing them together pulling them apart and maybe reinventing them or finding different structures altogether to inform the kind of work I do. But I suppose really it's about finding ways to sort of centre marginalised histories and stories, and particularly languages now online and in terms of our online spaces. And do that in a wide range of ways, from audio, which was a great passion of mine being a radio journalist originally, through to more recently emoji sticker sets and podcasts and apps, exhibitions, different kinds of things. But Mbantu is a deeply fascinating place in so many ways, but mostly because its entire colonial history, at least, or post-colonial history, is deeply embedded in the idea of communication, because the place exists as a town. Of course, it's Aranda country and has been for 60,000 plus years, but its colonial history is based on the story of the Overland Telegraph Line, which of course is this string that was pinned up from the top to the bottom of the country. It'll be in 1871 it was built, and so the entire location of this place as a town is based on this particular repeater station based on that line in the middle of Australia, which of course provided communications. It was the first time Australia was connected via a mechanised system, I suppose, with the rest of the world. So it was the moment, Australia kind of connected through a cable for the first time. So this place has a really complex and deep and long history around technology and communications technology. So I suppose as a journalist too, I've become increasingly fascinated as I've watched, I suppose, the internet flow through this place. When I first arrived here 10 years ago, you predominantly rang people on landlines and people didn't have mobile phones that much. My own house here could only be connected to the internet. I think it was in 2018 for the first time, and it's in the middle of town. So it's, the internet and digital connectivity is this new thing, and it's this very deeply colonising force that is flowing through this place that of course had much, super significant songline histories and communication histories and technological and engineering histories that are, in my opinion, far more sophisticated than any of our own. So I guess recently, as part of Ars Electronica, we developed for the first time an emoji set, which was Australia's first First Nation set of emoji, which was made with nearly 1,000 Aranda young people here in Mbantu, which was a project that was overseen by my dear collaborators, Veronica Dobson-Perula, Joel Little-Perula, and Kathleen Kamara-Wallace, who have totally changed my thinking about the world, and who I'm deeply indebted to and grateful for, who probably would have loved to have joined us this evening, but it's a little bit late for them. But they were very keen for me to share this collaborative work that we've done together. So I guess that project really brought together one of the world's newest languages, which of course is emoji. I of course use emoji like old people and throw one on the end of a sentence, but of course many young people, particularly here, almost use exclusively emoji in the way they talk. And so in creating their own set in their own language, they brought together this ancient sacred language and this new language together for the first time, which was this incredibly complex, rich and beautiful process that I suppose was, we were really excited to have recognised at the Prix in 2020, which was really beautiful. But I'm here at the moment in the next phase of that project, which is kind of, I suppose, responding to how artificial intelligence and machine learning and I guess automated technologies are beginning to flow through this place too, and really inform people's lives in terms of the government systems they interact with. But one of the most exciting applications, of course, for those platforms is Indigenous languages, the opportunity to preserve and explore. So we've been here working on a project called Akulia Andama Awichika, which means teaching to listen. And the whole concept is, can you teach a computer Aranda language? And what does it mean to do that? Can it learn? And if it is to recognise it somehow through machine learning, does it actually understand? And what does it mean to know? What does it mean? Does it have intelligence if it can determine between one word and another? So there's this deep sort of thinking that's going on. So we've been working with about 12, 16-year-old students who are incredible linguists already. Most of them are Central Aranda or Western Aranda, as well as some Pidintha students as well, who are building their own voice-activated computer game using the emojis for the first time and training a data set around that and are fully getting into the deep concepts around machine learning and artificial intelligence here for the first time. It's been an incredible journey, and now it's come clear that one of the biggest outcomes from it won't be the game, but has been this incredible conversations that's underway here about how you translate these concepts around machine learning and technology into Aranda language. So there is no word for computer in Aranda, obviously. So that's been weeks and weeks of conversation about how it is that you translate a word like that, or the idea of, and that's been everything from women workers, if you look at the history of the word computer, through to type or to tap, an action word, through to just thing. And then this whole deeper conversation about the ethics of whether it should be translated at all, or whether it's this concept from a colonizing force that maybe doesn't belong in Aranda language at all. And so then we're looking at words around binary. Of course, Aranda language has a different number system. So it's 1, 2, 3, many. So how do you think about zeros and ones and concepts of binary in a language that doesn't think about numbers the way we think about numbers? So it's this rich, beautiful conversation going on about translating this entire language, because to understand any system, you have to be able to understand the parts, but also, I suppose, to understand it in your own language is a completely different level of understanding than just having a set of colonial English terms given to you and taught to you. And to make is to understand. And so the fact that these students are making this game, which is shaping up to be very cute and amazing, and their capacity to do so in multiple languages has been really phenomenal, and an absolute privilege to be a part of. So I guess just to sum up, I suppose, in thinking about the new digital deal, I guess it's just some fundamentals around the fact that not all of our infrastructural access is the same. Often the internet stops working here when it rains, so it has its own natural algorithms, I suppose. But also that any new technology only comes off the back of, thousands of years of other technological and engineering kind of developments that pre-exist them. Not all the things that look shiny and new aren't always that shiny and new. They're built upon something else. And I suppose just also that small tech matters in this time where we're really, dominant. There's these big dominant kind of tech forces in our lives that, for people to be able to understand and make systems in their own languages, on their own platforms, to explore that and then decide whether they're safe for them is this critical, fundamental and human right to have exposure to that and to need time to explore those things. And I guess my last plea is just that what made this project so beautiful, it's supported by the Processing Foundation, is that it wasn't determinant on an outcome. So the game doesn't really matter. It's about the capacity building. And I feel like more and more in our age of limited funding, particularly in a COVID age, everything's so dependent on that product, that outcome, and proving that outcome and justifying your funding that way. And more just, I think, having the capacity and the money for people to experiment at a slower time frame in a way that, that is meaningful for them in a place and a language that is theirs, is the kind of new digital deal that a place like this deeply needs. So I guess that's some of the thinking that's been happening in this space at the moment.
Wow, really important work, Caddie. And I just managed to jump on your website earlier on to check out some of the projects you worked on. And it seems to be that, it's so important these days to be merging some of the ancient technologies, which is really by far, some eons ahead at times, with current technologies, which, in some sort of sense are very sort of short term, but really fascinating stuff. And it's great to have you around in the office to be able to talk about this. I'm hoping to see you soon when you come back from the MT, when things sort of open up around here. But thanks for that, Caddie.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to jump over to our next guests, the Cuddle Coin Collective, they're called. But I'm going to let them talk about their project or system a little bit more, because when I tend to Google it, I can't find anything, which for me just is extremely cool. and it's some kind of currency using hugs or something like that. So I'm totally intrigued. Who gets to hug who?
Thanks a lot. That's thanks a lot, really. Yeah, we've prepared a little presentation, so we might jump into that first, and then talk about it after that, if that's okay.
We'll go from there. Yeah, you had it just about right. Almost ungoogleable, and it is just a collision of hugs and money, I suppose. So what better way to explain how Cuddle Coin works than to make a presentation called Introduction to Cuddle Coin. In a sentence, really, Cuddle Coin is internet money made for giving to people you love. It's cryptocurrency, obviously, internet money, and it's something we've been spending our deep, dark COVID winter working on. This is an extremely 2021, extremely online COVID project. But what do we mean by internet money for people you love? There are a few other ways you could probably describe this project. One way that we played with in the early days was, well, in the same way that people give each other Hallmark cards at special moments in their lives, maybe there could be a cryptocurrency around those moments. Or in the same way that we like each other's content online as an expression of gratitude or agreement, perhaps putting some monetary weight behind that results in something like Cuddle Coin, or just simply, oh, missed it, but you got the idea, like giving a dollar note a kiss and then handing it to someone. So as I said, it's a very online, very COVID project, obviously created at a time when we're all very, I mean, like this meeting right now is indicative, right? We're all kind of relaying ourselves into each other's lounge rooms and homes, and to hug at the moment is pretty much illegal. So that's one of the kind of basic inspirations for this project. But there were some other things as well, some other ideas that we've been thinking about and talking about in the lead up to this project that caused us to embark on it. And the first was this, on the one hand, a fascination with cryptocurrency and in particular altcoin communities, but also a kind of revulsion at them as well. For those who don't know, an altcoin is basically any cryptocurrency that isn't Bitcoin. So most cryptocurrencies, and there are thousands of them. And there's a really vibrant cryptosphere active across the internet. And we follow them. Actually, one of the kind of prototype ideas for this project was to document them, to actually make a documentary about altcoins. Instead, we realized that all of these cryptocurrencies are based on open source technology, and the people who are running them are not professionals. Very few people are professionals in this sphere. Everyone's a generalist. Most people are trying things for the first time. And so if we want to know more about altcoins and how they work, and if we want to help to correct for some of the toxic cultures within cryptocurrencies, maybe we could just start our own. The second was this kind of this understanding of crypto communities as kind of participatory cultures. And this stemmed from an article, it's a couple of years old now, by a group called Other Internet, who wrote an article called Headless Brands. And that article used Bitcoin as an example of a project that is participatory. It's an inverse of brands as we understand brands to be these centrally managed bodies, and an organization where the community itself is incentivized to participate in its own creation and to perpetuate it across the internet. And this at a time when, you know, we're kind of living in a consensus deficit at the moment. We can't seem to agree on anything. Any kind of organizational structure that is participatory seemed really interesting. So why don't we try to take advantage of that and create something really lovely. And the last thing was, and actually this is something that we came across midstream after we'd already started creating Cuddle Coin, was this idea of software that has been made by people who love us. So we've had already embarked on Cuddle Coin to create something for just our immediate networks, as literally as gifts for friends and family. We say that Cuddle Coin is the product of the Internet of Feelings, and that's become a kind of an indirect reference to a curriculum that Melanie Hoff from the School of Poetic Computation created on what she calls digital love languages. And the central provocation to that course was this: what if all software we use was made by people who love us, and caused us to kind of reflect on the tools and the software that we use at the moment, that we're using all the time at the moment, like Zoom, like Office, like Outlook, that are essentially tools to optimize productivity. And if we're going to spend so much of our lives on the internet, then does the internet need to expand its dimensionality to include some of the extremes of human experiences like emotion? So that's the kind of more maybe academic, foundational kind of inspiration to the project. But really, we just wanted to get in there and make something. So we created a cryptocurrency. We capped the maximum supply of Cuddle coins that could ever exist to the world's population on July 31, 2021, which is International Friendship Day. So there will only ever be 7.8 billion Cuddle coins in existence. We gave it a cute typeface and a friendly brand, and we created these little characters that could be our kind of meme mascots, I suppose, in our communications. And so it's active, it's running now. We're kind of slowly taking the scaffolding off it. This is currently what most cryptocurrencies look like through the terminal screen, and how a lot of people interact with cryptocurrencies. And this is how we also interact with Cuddle Coin, but because we want this to have a really friendly interface for our friends and family who might not be as technically savvy, I suppose, we had this idea of, well, what if we just give the currency a physical form? What if we just create a currency? So that's what we've done. We had an illustrator come in and make these designs, and then we're getting them printed. And this, I'm hoping, that we call it off-chain, will be the primary way in which Cuddle coins exchange between people. And so for the exhibition in December, what we're hoping to do, if we've got this currency, is we've found an old ATM. We found an old shell of an ATM, and we're going to try to reverse engineer it to be the very first, world's first Cuddle coin machine. So that's what we're working on at the moment. It's kind of we're taking the long view on this. Yeah, that's really it.
Wow, that's super cool. That's super cool.
And this is our website. We just relaunched it today, so check it out.
Right, the Internet of Feelings. Thanks, gentlemen. The Cuddle Coin Collective. Very curious to see, how it sort of continues on, because it seems like a project that can just, live and keep living. I don't know where you find ATMs like that of that era, but maybe they do sell them.
There's a funny story about the ATM.
You'd be surprised. Yeah. I don't think we should. It's so awesome though to be invited to be part of the Ars Electronica this year, though, because it just feels like a neat fit for us with the new digital deal, concept. I mean, that idea that technology changes us, like it sort of makes a lot of sense for this for us, I guess, just because because we're curious. We sort of looked into this altcoin world, and we're frankly just a bit grossed out by the overriding culture there. So that sort of is the attempt of just like doing something that isn't of that culture, I guess, because there's nothing inherent about the technology that makes it sort of a little bit gross. So just the idea of trying to invert that is fun, and also at the same time, the project's changing us. Like none of us are software engineers, like far from it. But just on taking this on as, and I guess making something that's not typically seen as a creative project, like cryptocurrency is very much in software fintech space, which doesn't sound creative or fun. But I guess because the technology is still quite immature, really, it is fun. It feels like making websites in the early days of the web and stuff like that. So I think we're finding it really interesting, and the more it's ticked over, the more more sense it's made for us to keep banging on it and sort of try to make an art project out of something that doesn't sound even vaguely arty.
Yes. So you see, Andrew, you do make money in art.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
I might pass it over to Christopher. Christopher, do you want to introduce your friends Matthew Gardiner and Rachel Hanlon? They've just come on. I saw them sort of sneak on during the webinars. I didn't get to introduce you guys earlier on, but I'll let you introduce them, Christopher.
Thank you very much, Ruli. And look, thanks so much. I'm so fascinated and excited by all the artists that have joined this panel, and some weren't able to make it, but what we're building here. The Cuddle Coin Collective, talking to you guys early in the week that you've already located a secondhand ATM that you can repurpose. It's probably just a good time to mention as well, the idea of our exhibition is, this has to be out in the public space. We want to infiltrate the kind of zones and areas that maybe art wouldn't normally infiltrate. That's part of, I think, the ethos of what Ars Electronica is also about. So we do have some set locations that we'll be working with. Andrew, for instance, and Caddie will be at the Clyde Street studios, and then we're going to activate other parts of the Clyde Street precinct. I'm hoping to get the Creator Incubator involved with some artists there. But this project you guys just mentioned, I mean, I'd love to just chuck that into a shopping mall, and just engage with some people. So there's a little bit of awareness building around what this project is. So yeah, super excited. We're running a little bit out of time, and I don't want to go too far over time for those that have got other commitments, particularly in our panel. I'm certainly okay to stick around, and we can try and address any questions that are there. But for now, moving along, it gives me a great pleasure and a warm feeling, I would say, to introduce my very old, wonderful colleagues from the Future Lab, Rachel Hanlon and Matthew Gardiner, to talk a little bit about their work. There is a connection to Newcastle, which we might get to at the end, but Rachel's work in general, the Hello machine that she's invented, which will, in this case, take over the form of a Hello Newcastle, I think is a really awesome fit to this program. Welcome, guys, and over to you, and thanks for being part of it and joining tonight.
Thanks, Christopher, and really great to see you again. And it was really great to hear all those other projects. It's really exciting to hear the content of them all, and each one was enthralling and exciting, and in its humorous way as well. So what I'll first talk about is with my art practice. It centers around the rearticulation and appropriation of obsolete technology. So through a creative art research project, my practice, I explore how reanimating the objects from the past reveal and inform to us the complexities of the past and present, and how they're understood and experienced. So to do this, I created Hello machines, which are the reanimated vintage phones, which are situated across the globe in changing locations, which then create space for spontaneous voice visiting. So I like to make available the layered metaphors and meanings behind the obsolete technologies that are heightened as part of our cultural reliance of them, the narratives through our time. So telecommunications as a technology has a long history of allowing the public and artists to develop a level of intimacy with others, not bound by their physical or locational confines. It's globally weaved webs of wires have afforded creative minds the platforms through which to develop, the internet, and the relationships we now have with each other and are talking to each other now. And Ars Electronica has had a large role in facilitating the development of this exploration into telecommunications artistically from the start of artists exploring the ways we can break down gallery walls and interact with the public and inside the gallery and outside. So I thought that was an important part, to mention that there is this long history. So why bring, the past and present together, in this context, is because the first universally heard other, in real time of the disembodied voice was first made possible through the invention of the telephone and other modern, the AI, which we know now is the other sort of, voice operating system that technology is moving into. People express their similar concerns with new technology that they did in the past. So my research sort of revisits these areas of concern from the past and, layers them with the present. So, so what you're seeing now is images from the Ars Electronica Festival in 2017, where I showed the work there, and other ones. So the 4 areas of interest to me in the digitization of telephony as a whole movement is first in social engagement that this allows. So, let's see here, what interests me is the ways in which the public also interacts with these works of art, and they choose to photograph themselves using them, connect to other users using them, talk, take photos of themselves, put those on social medias, and try and connect to the people they're talking through these interconnected works, directly through using the media that's under examination. So through their telephones, they connect to others using these telephones, which I really like. Also, there's the documentation and the recording. So this tracks our present and past, by exposing all the different cultural connections we make, which forms the thingness that this technology possesses. So, which is as much a part of us as any other recognized artifact that we collect. So once a participant uses a Hello machine, they then become an active installation for other viewers, which has the possibility of triggering responses in them, as they watch someone talk on the work. So they themselves are then part of the exhibition for other people who are witnessing it. So, and then there's also so this work that was in Berlin. This has been in Dublin at the Science Gallery in Dublin, and then it was for a couple of months. It was at the Science Gallery in Venice, and I did some workshops with the different groups of children in the Biennale, in the Children's Biennale. So that was really interesting, the way they were exposing these analog technologies, and they did different workshops with the old and new technology with using the Hello machines that I'd made. So also it's in the collection of the data. So here I've made some spectrograms, and so there's about 60,000 conversations at present that have gone through Hello machines. So here we just have 1.5 million seconds of Hello machining, so it's collected. So I also like to look at other ways we can transform the data that's collected through the Hello machine. So with the Hello Newcastle project, so this will be a nostalgic call to action that will be developed further, with collaboration from the team of at Art Thinking. And it'll be, because these the phones are off-site. I've had them in institutes for the blind in Dublin. I've had them in maker labs, fab labs, museums, senior citizens clubs, so all interconnected. So bringing people who might not necessarily go to a gallery space are then brought into, interacting on this level. So for Matt as my technical producer, this brings a lot of questions into how do you reanimate the old technology. So we've been running a Hello Geelong project to test, how this goes, networks, within a town, rather than I've done it through different countries, but I like to think of the intimacy sometimes of with it's in a town space and it's bringing different community spaces together rather than looking outwardly, through connecting different countries. So this, even though these are, somewhat smaller projects, they feel really more intimate and more about what communication is like, especially for Australia, where we have been our own sort of island nation for a long time, and there's a rich history, you know, as they were talking about before, with telecommunications in Australia. So if you want to talk about your input into the...
I really liked your point before that you found an old ATM, because we've been doing exactly what you guys are about to embark on, is getting like cool old bits of technology, like this phone that we picked up in Germany. As far as we can tell, it's from the old DDR, and it's on the back, it's called the DVT, and they're great, beautiful old, beautifully molded, beautiful colors. And so most of what I do is we order these, we scour like the cheapest, you know, we've found our way into things on, especially in Europe, on something called Kleinanzeigen, and buy these phones. We have no idea whether they're going to work or not. We pull them back. We've got a process through, we plug them into an analog telephone converter, and then try to reanimate them from that point. So then we connect them to VoIP, and then later there's quite a lot of development that we're doing with some speech recognition. We use a Google Speech Cloud for that. So the best part though of the whole project is working with these creepy old pieces of gear. Like this is an old Erica phone. Super weird. It's got the dial on the bottom, so it sort of answers by picking it up and down. And so there's some amazing pieces of gear, and my favorite ones are the old public pay phones, because you got to work out how to, quite often you've got to break the lock because they don't come with a key, and then get inside them and get them working. Yeah, that's great fun.
So it's so awesome to have you guys involved. You know, if we had more time, you know, we've had a bit of a chat, Matt. I'm hoping to get you involved with the many other stuff you're doing. I mean, you're the world leading oroboticist. You coined the term. You combine origami and robotics. You're involved in a project out at Singleton we're working on at the moment. So I think there's going to be a lot of scope. It's fantastic to have this project involved, but I think also thinking about some other possibilities. I know more recently, Matt, you're a keen surfer. You're thinking about your origami robotic creations. You're thinking about the ocean. You're thinking about tidal waves and possibilities to explore. So maybe just quickly, maybe you could start to think about something like that for this project.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Hey, thanks so much, guys.
Yeah, thanks.
Just finally, and most importantly, I think also to mention is we really want to focus also having space for emerging artists and emerging talents in this exhibition. And one of the other hats that I wear, but also Art Thinking as a company, is that we mentor students as part of our work. And it's my great pleasure to have here tonight Amanda and Joshua and Aaron, who, well, Aaron's come into the world earlier. He's studying in the creative industries, and he's very much focused on interaction design. But Amanda and Josh had joined me from the School of Computer Science. And I think maybe just firstly for you, Amanda, you could say a little bit about your involvement coming into this project, and then I'll get you to talk a little bit about the Beehive, and then we might throw to Josh as a bit of an example of what he's been working on. So thanks for being here, and over to you, Amanda.
Thank you everyone for having us here. And I've come in with the Phoebe Scholarship to work with Christopher. And from there, I was able to discover the world of creative technology. And thanks to him, I was able to get an integration with our work experience and with learning how to combine technology and art together, which is just the basis of this entire panel. And with Beehive, our goal is to interact the people who are in any public space to capture whatever they see with their phones, and whatever they upload will be displayed in any event that will be portrayed. So I'll now hand it over to Josh to explain what technology we've been creating for the past 2 months, I believe.
Yeah, it has been some time trying to work it all out.
Yes.
I will quickly apologize about my camera. I am having a few issues, so I do apologize for that, but we'll crack on anyway. So yeah, we've been developing it in the Expo framework, which is basically a framework built around React Native. It's a really, really cool kind of upcoming code base that allows us to develop apps for iOS, Android, and browsers, all with one code base. So it's really, really helpful. I do have a video that I can quickly try and attempt to share. Do we have time for that?
Sure, Josh, fire away.
Awesome. All right, so let's share my screen here, and I hope it all works. So I'm going to want to share sound. All righty. All right, so everyone can see this?
Yes.
Yep.
Awesome.
Hi everyone, my name is Josh, and for the next couple of minutes, I'm going to take you through Art Thinking's Beehive. Beehive is going to be a really cool way for communities to capture and share footage of anything that might be going on in their local area or at an event. So for us to contribute, we'll first create an account. This will be for users who would like to have a portfolio of their videos saved for them while using Beehive, enabling them to rewatch their content at a later date. This will be completely optional, however, as users will be able to contribute anonymously if they wish. There are many features currently being developed for the mobile application, such as the feed page and the profile page. But today we're going to focus on the star of the show, which is the camera. Please keep in mind that everything is still in early development and will undergo many changes. So to record a video, we'll simply hold down the record button and Beehive will begin recording. Beehive will continue to record until we release the button, which we'll do so now. Users can also upload a video from their gallery if they wish to do so. So now that the video has been recorded, we've hit save. The save screen lets us enter a caption for the video and set a tag, simply indicating what the video is about. We have some default ones here, so for now, we'll choose Sydney. Users can also choose to create their own custom tag if they would prefer. As you can also see, the post will be saved with the user's current city attached by default. This can be turned off if the user does not wish for this data to be saved with the video. But now that our video is ready to go, we'll hit the upload button. Once it's uploaded, I'll take you across to the Beehive website where we'll get to see our newly recorded video. And there we go, a successfully uploaded video. So now we're over at the current Beehive website. It is pretty plain at the moment, but like I said at the start, there's plenty of things to come. So as you can see, there's already a video here that I uploaded a few days ago. But to its right, you can see the new video that we just uploaded then. So this basically sums up what Beehive is and how it works. Hopefully at some point there'll be hundreds of videos on this website being displayed in creative and cool ways. And I'm certainly looking forward to being part of making that a reality.
Alrighty.
Thanks, guys.
So yeah, that's basically Beehive in a nutshell. It's a relatively simple concept, but I feel like it's going to really help engage in a lot of events. So it'd be really interesting to see it come to life.
Thanks a lot, Josh. And yeah, I just very quickly, you guys have kind of come in. So that's the first layer and a little bit that I've told you, but I'm keeping that as a bit of a surprise. I will just also share my screen very quickly. And what you'll see here is an actual earlier beehive called the Bienenstock from Austria. Bienenstock is the German word for beehive. So this was actually developed in early 2013. Pretty cool soundtrack there, I think, but I'll turn that down a little. And what you have here is a very interesting video installation that has 25 screens connected to 25 Raspberry Pis and quite a complex network, which is then also connected to what's called a geocoded print. And you're able to change aspects of the videos using that print and a technique called a Noto pen technology. And there was many other iterations of the beehive that was done. So basically what you guys have started is a framework, actually, which we're then going to, by December, think about how we could use and manipulate in a bit of a different way. And that's going to be mostly your role, Aaron. I just wanted to quickly introduce you, and I'm not sure if you want to say a few words about what you're currently doing to explore the possibilities.
Yeah, so basically we're still in early development of what could be the tangible aspect of the Beehive Art Thinking branch. But yeah, it comes down to the fact this is a very expandable and you know, can fit into any sort of event. any size of event. And yeah, basically we could do anything from whether that be like hide and seek, tagging food, locations, sharing other people's information, sort of in exhibit form. But yeah, we're looking at basically collation, and then dissemination of information in a very physical way, of which we're only just starting to really conceive of the physical implementation of that.
Thanks, Aaron. Well, that's exactly right. I mean, unfortunately, we're dealing with COVID, but right behind me here in the Art Thinking studio, your Raspberry Pi setup is still there and waiting for you as soon as you're able to come back in, and we can continue to work with that. So basically, the Beehive, it's a very experimental framework. And maybe just to kind of wrap up and to explain another important part of the context of the exhibition is that the exhibition goes side by side to what will be Australia's first Future Innovators Summit, which is a whole summit for a week dedicated to big minds, experts of the future coming together to talk about some new possibilities, new questions, new directions. The catch in terms of what we're doing for Newcastle is that all those future experts are actually the real experts. They're going to be all be kids. So we're going to have kids between age 4 and 18. We're combining 2 formats from Ars Electronica, the Future Innovators Summit and the Experts of the Future. And these programs will be sort of then melding together. So there's lots of possibilities of how we can use the Beehive as an application, as a catalyst to engage with some of those kids. The first day of both the exhibition and the Future Innovators Summit, we will have the 2 formats of the Art Thinking Tour for the older kids and the Art Thinking Safari for the younger kids, where they're going to explore around, engage with the artworks, engage with the exhibitions, meet the artists who are involved. And just that will be the sort of first inspiration session of what they'll be basically participating in. So, hey, great to have you guys involved, and really well done for jumping on here. I know it's a little bit daunting, and particularly Amanda and Josh coming in only a few months ago, not considering yourself artists at all, and now you're here presenting within one of the large big media art platforms in the world. So thanks a lot for being involved, and back over to you, Ruli.
Okay, well, it seems like we've got a really good collective of art and on this panel, and artists on this panel, artists or non-artists, whatever you want to call yourselves, really, from ATM machine, not mid-90s ATM machines, probably 70s telephones, all bees, the fungus, and the capturing of breaths. So emojis as well. So I think it's a real interesting, diverse set of artists and work you guys are working on. Really looking forward to the December exhibition here. This is pretty much the end of our Garden Newcastle 2021. I'm probably going to try and catch a little bit more of the Ars TV while it's still around, and I'm up. Thank you to all the artists that have been involved in here for coming on board. For some of you very late, for some of you really early in the morning. Thank you again. And looking forward to staying in contact with you guys for the December exhibition. Hopefully when things sort of open up a little bit more. Don't forget to check out our website, artthinking.com.au, just to keep an update of what we're up to. We've also got the social media, and thanks again to our partners, University of Newcastle, as well as Fast Lab, and also the City of Newcastle. So that pretty much is going to wrap up our show tonight. Everyone take care, and hope to see you guys soon.
Thanks a lot.
Good night.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
We left.